Transported back to 1960, I started off on hell difficulty. The original owner had fainted from hunger, and I took over a body that was practically falling apart. My 3 sisters-in-law surrounded me, crying. The whole village was left with only the old, the weak, women, and children waiting to die. But they didn't know that I had just found a harvest reward system. As long as I could get food, I could exchange it for supplies and skills. I grabbed the rotten bamboo strips nobody wanted in the yard, my hands moving so fast they blurred, and wove a fish-catching miracle tool. Every fish in the river tonight is going into my trap. When I woke up, I felt like I'd been run over repeatedly by a heavy truck. There wasn't a single part of my body that didn't hurt, especially my stomach. It felt like I was carrying a ball of fire inside, burning my throat dry and making my vision go dark. My eyelids felt as heavy as 1,000 pounds. Faintly, I could hear women crying by my ear. On and off, irritating to listen to. "𝐭𝐫, wake up. If you're gone too, how are the rest of us supposed to go on living?" The voice was very unfamiliar, filled with despair. I was confused. I clearly remembered taking part in a wilderness survival competition, climbing a cliff barehanded to pick wild fruit. My foot slipped, and I fell straight down. But where was this now? The air smelled of earth and mildew, with none of the scent of disinfectant. What I was lying on was hard, not a hospital bed. I gathered all my strength and forced my eyes open a crack. The light was very dim. It took several seconds for my eyes to adjust. What came into view was a low, pitch-black roof with several holes in it, letting in a grayish daylight. I was lying on an 𝐒𝐫𝐚𝐽 bed, with dry straw spread underneath me and a stiff, tattered quilt covered in patches over me. "He's awake. 𝐭𝐫 is awake." 3 haggard women's faces crowded close. They were wearing coarse cloth clothes covered in patches, with sallow faces, cracked lips, and dry, yellowed hair without any shine. But it was clear that they were all still young, and their natural features were good. It was just that long-term malnutrition and worry had made them look far older than they really were. Just as I was staring at them in confusion, a flood of memories that clearly didn't belong to me surged into my mind like a breached dam. The intense pain made me let out a muffled groan, and I nearly fainted again. After a long while, I gasped for breath, my eyes full of shock. I, 𝐒𝐫𝐚𝐽, a 21st-century graduate of traditional Chinese medicine and an outdoor sports enthusiast, had transmigrated. I had transmigrated into the body of a 16-year-old boy, also named 𝐒𝐿𝐵, in 1960. It was now the well-known difficult period, and the whole country was suffering from famine. The mountainside village where we were was an especially hard-hit area. Last year there was a severe drought, and the fields had almost no harvest at all. The original owner's parents and 3 older brothers had all died one after another long ago. Some starved to death, some got sick and had no money for treatment, and some went into the mountains looking for food and met with accidents. In the end, only the original owner and the wives his 3 older brothers had left behind. These 3 young widows in front of me were left to depend on one another. The eldest sister-in-law, 𝐿𝐸𝐤𝐿𝐢, was 25 or 26 and the pillar of the family. The second sister-in-law, 𝐓𝐫𝐚𝐧𝐬𝐭, was 22 or 23, soft-natured and quick to cry. The third sister-in-law, 𝐭𝐫𝐚, was 18 or 19. She used to be lively, but now she had wilted too. The situation in the village was even worse. Nearly all the able-bodied men had been organized to go deep into the mountains to look for food, and none of them came back. Now those left were basically all elderly people too weak to walk and widows and orphans. The entire village was shrouded in a despairing dead silence. And the original owner had fainted alive from hunger after going 2 straight days without a drop of water or a grain of food. Once he passed out, he never woke up again. Which let me, having fallen from a cliff, pick up a bargain. 𝐭𝐫, how are you feeling? Big sister-in-law reached out and touched my forehead, her voice trembling. Her hand was icy cold and covered in rough calluses. "Water," I managed to say with difficulty, my voice hoarse like a broken bellows. Third sister-in-law hurriedly picked up a chipped, battered bowl by the Kong, with a tiny bit of murky water inside. She carefully helped me up and fed it to me. The water carried an earthy taste, easing the burning pain in my throat a little. But the hunger in my stomach became even clearer. I looked at the 3 sallow, emaciated women in front of me, staring at me eagerly, and my heart was filled with mixed emotions. In my previous life, I was an orphan, relying on work, study, and scholarships to finish school, with hardly any family. I never expected that after transmigrating once, I'd suddenly have 3 sisters-in-law who needed me to take responsibility for them. This start is hell difficulty. Forget supporting anyone else, even I was on the verge of starving to death. No matter how much wilderness survival knowledge I had, on this land where even the tree bark had been stripped and the grass roots dug out, It all seemed pale and powerless. A deep sense of helplessness seized me. Could it be that just after transmigrating here, I was going to die again? And in the most frustrating way possible, starving to death? No. I finally got a second chance at life. How could I just accept my fate like this? I looked at eldest sister-in-law's bloodshot eyes that were still forcing themselves to stay strong, at second sister-in-law constantly wiping away tears and trembling, at third sister-in-law's big eyes, once lively, now full of panic. A powerful will to survive, mixed with an inexplicable sense of responsibility, suddenly surged up from the depths of my heart. I am the only man left in this family now. I have to stay alive. And I must also keep these 3 pitiful women, whose fates are tied to mine, alive. This thought burned in my chest like wildfire, ding accompanied by a crisp, pleasant chime. It suddenly rang out in the depths of my mind. I froze. A hallucination? Was I hallucinating from hunger? Before I could react, a screen emitting a faint glow, like a game interface, was projected directly into my consciousness. The host's strong will to survive meets the binding conditions. Harvest reward system, binding in progress. Binding successful. Host, Lin Bei. Constitution, 10-100 extremely weak, on the verge of death. Skills, none. System space, not activated. Current points, 0. Core rule, any form of harvest behavior will grant the host corresponding rewards based on the value of the harvested items. Newbie gift pack has been placed in temporary storage. Open immediately. Looking at the futuristic light screen before me that only I could see, my heart pounded wildly. A cheat ability. The standard equipment of a transmigrator. The greatest support for staying alive. It's here. Without the slightest hesitation, I silently said in my heart, open. Newbie gift pack opened successfully. Congratulations, host, you have obtained 1. Constitution Repair Fluid X1. Restores constitution to the level of a healthy, ordinary person after use. Constitution increased to 60. 2. Basic Nutrition Compound X3. Quickly relieves hunger and maintains bodily functions for at least 24 hours. 3. Universal Fish Trap Blueprint X1. Instantly master multiple fish trap making methods and techniques after use. Good stuff. All life-saving good stuff. I forcibly suppressed the wild joy in my heart. Right now, the most important thing was to use these items first. I took a deep breath and forced out a reassuring smile. Sister-in-law, I think I have a little strength now. I want to lie down and rest a bit longer. It's just that my mouth feels tasteless and my heart feels uneasy. Could you give me a little more water to drink? Eldest sister-in-law only thought I was suffering from hunger and wanted to use water to fill my stomach, which made her feel even sadder. All right, wait here. She picked up the broken bowl by the Kong and shakily walked toward the half-man-high earthenware jar in the corner. My gaze followed her closely. I saw eldest sister-in-law carefully scoop out less than half a ladle of even murkier water from the earthenware jar and pour it into the bowl, just as she turned around holding the water. At the moment when she had her back turned to the water jar in the corner, I recited silently in my heart. The 3 nutritional compounds filled with transparent liquid instantly appeared in my hands, and at top speed, I used my body and the torn quilt as cover to pour them precisely into the largest water storage jar beside me. Use the physique restoration liquid. At the same time, I gave another command in my mind. That small jade bottle vanished into thin air. A gentle yet powerful warm current surged from my heart and quickly flowed through my limbs and every part of my body, like parched land finally receiving sweet rain. My sore, weak muscles were infused with new vitality. My cold limbs warmed up. The dizziness, blacking out, and lightheadedness quickly disappeared. Even the stomach spasms caused by prolonged hunger eased. Although my body was still thin and weak, that dying sense of frailty had been completely swept away. I quietly clenched my fist and felt strength I hadn't felt in a long time. Just then, my eldest sister-in-law came over with the water. "Xiaobei, the water's here. Drink slowly." I took the bowl and pretended to take a small sip, while all my attention was on that doctor jar of water. I looked at my 3 sisters-in-law. Their cracked lips needed moisture too. "Sisters-in-law, you should drink some too. I can see your lips are all chapped." Eldest sister-in-law shook her head. "We're not thirsty. You drink it, make it last. Drink it." My tone carried a trace of unquestionable insistence. "All of us drink some. We all have to survive. Not one of us can be missing." Perhaps my gaze was too calm at that moment. Or perhaps the little color that had just returned to my face gave them hope. Or perhaps the words survive touched the most fragile place in their hearts. Eldest sister-in-law looked at second sister-in-law and third sister-in-law, and finally picked up the ladle and scooped half a bowl for each of them from the big water jar. "Listen to Xiaobei, everyone drink some. The three women held their bowls and took small sips of that murky, yet somehow different water. It still had that earthy taste, seemingly no different. But after it flowed down their throats, a warm heat quickly spread from their stomachs. The hunger that had tormented them to the point of nearly going mad actually faded at a visible speed. Although it was still far from enough to fill them up, that clawing, gut-twisting feeling of their stomachs sticking to their backs was gone. In its place was a long-lost sense of solidity, as if energy had been poured back into their bodies. The three women's eyes widened instantly. This water. Second sister-in-law touched her stomach, too astonished to speak. It feels like I'm not that hungry anymore. Third sister-in-law cried out softly with excitement, a hint of color rising on her pale face. Eldest sister-in-law felt the changes in her body, then looked at me, my eyes bright as if I were a different person. Her lips trembled, and tears welled up again. But this time, they were no longer tears of despair, but tears of excitement at seeing hope. I lay on the calm, turning the system over in my mind. The effect of the physique restoration liquid really is incredible. My whole body felt warm, that deadly weakness was gone, and my hands and feet had strength again. My stomach was still hungry, but it was no longer that burning, gut-scratching kind of hunger. I quietly moved my hands and feet a little, and my joints gave a faint crack. Comfortable. With one turn, I neatly sat up. The movement startled the three sisters-in-law. 𝐭𝐲, slow down. I looked at their tense expressions, and my heart warmed. But now was not the time to lie down. The system gave me a 24-hour buffer period, and I had to find a stable food source within that time. Sisters-in-law, I'm fine now. I got straight to my feet, and even jumped twice on purpose. Look, I'm really better. The three sisters-in-law were all dumbfounded. The person who had been at death's door just a moment ago was now jumping around. This. What's going on? Third sister-in-law rubbed her eyes. Eldest sister-in-law even reached out to feel my forehead, then hers. No fever. 𝐭𝐲, do you really feel fine? This isn't a last flash of vitality before death, is it? I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Sister-in-law, what are you saying? I just feel full of strength. I'm still hungry, but I've got energy in me now. Afraid they'd keep pressing me with questions, I quickly changed the subject. I want to look for something in the yard and move around a bit. Then, ignoring their attempts to stop me, I started wandering around the yard. This family was really dirt poor. The yard wasn't big, and in the corners were piled all sorts of miscellaneous junk. Half of a rotten shoulder pole, several bundles of straw rope that had gone moldy long ago, and some blackened, moldy bamboo strips picked up from who knows where. If it were before, I wouldn't even spare this trash a glance. But things were different now. To me, these were all treasures. I picked out the hemp rope that hadn't completely rotted through yet, then sorted out the bamboo strips that were moldy on the surface but still sturdy inside, one by one. The three sisters-in-law followed behind me, completely baffled. 𝐭𝐲, what are you messing with this junk for? Without even looking up, I kept rummaging through it. Sisters-in-law, do you trust me? I suddenly looked up, staring very seriously at the three women. We do. Of course we do. The three of them answered almost in unison. They had personally seen the effect of that bowl of miracle water just now. Now when they looked at me, their expressions were different. As long as you trust me, that's enough. I grinned. I'm going to use this junk to get us some meat. Meat? The three sisters-in-law were all stunned. These days, we can barely even get enough tree bark to eat, and you're talking about meat? I didn't explain. Carrying the materials I'd picked out, I walked to the middle of the yard and plopped down on the doorstep. It was time to show my real skills. I silently recited in my heart. Use the universal fish trap, crafting blueprint. In an instant, a flood of information poured into my mind. The structures of all kinds of fish traps, weaving techniques, trap-setting methods. As if they were instincts I'd been born with, deeply imprinted in my memory. I picked up a bamboo strip, and my hands naturally began to move. I shaved off the burrs, bent it into the right curve, and used hemp rope to secure the frame. My movements flowed smoothly, as skillful as a veteran's. The three sisters-in-law gathered around me, their eyes growing wider and wider. They watched my hands flutter up and down. Watched that junk bamboo and hemp rope seem to come alive in my hands. Slowly, a strange-looking thing began to take shape. 𝐭𝐲, what are you weaving? Third sister-in-law was the most curious. A fish trap. My hands never stopped. What's it for? For catching fish. Eldest sister-in-law frowned. The fish in the river are too clever. It's not like no one in the village has tried before, they just couldn't catch any. Second sister-in-law chimed in. A while back, Wang Laowu and the others even went into the water to feel around. After all that work, they only caught 2 tiny bony fish. I smiled, and my hands moved even faster. Sisters-in-law, mine is different. This is a method I learned from that tattered book left behind by the old hunter. I'd already thought up my excuse. In the original owner's memory, there really had been a tattered old book at home, left behind by an old hunter, though later no one knew where it had been lost. Perfect to use as an excuse. That tattered book? Eldest sister-in-law tried hard to remember. The one propping up the table leg? The one with pictures in it? Right. I used to flip through it whenever I had nothing to do. It recorded a lot of strange and unusual methods. Without changing expression, I kept weaving. Put that way, the three sisters-in-law did believe it a little more. They had all seen that book before. It really did have some incomprehensible drawings in it. They just hadn't expected 𝐓𝐫𝐽 to actually learn a skill from it. But 𝐓𝐫𝐽, since when did your hands get so deft? Third sister-in-law stared at my nimble fingers. My heart tightened, but my face gave nothing away. Oh, I was just messing around and figuring things out. I never tried it before, but for some reason today, my hands are especially obedient. I deliberately made it sound mysterious. Maybe. It must be our parents blessing us from heaven. At the mention of our deceased parents, the expressions of the three sisters-in-law all dimmed for a moment. Sure enough, they stopped pressing me with questions. I secretly let out a sigh of relief and continued focusing on weaving the fish trap. Time passed little by little. The sun slanted westward, and the sky gradually grew dark. At last, a fish trap about half a meter long and 30 centimeters in diameter took shape in my hands. This fish trap had a very special design. One end was wide and the other narrow. The wider end had a trumpet-shaped entrance with a ring of inward-facing barbs inside, while the narrower end was tied shut with hemp rope, leaving an opening that could be untied. The whole thing was woven from bamboo strips, with gaps left just right. It allowed the water to flow through while preventing the fish from escaping. Though the materials were crude, the design was extremely ingenious. I was very satisfied with my handiwork. Carrying the fish trap, I stood up and stretched my numb legs and feet. Done. The three sisters-in-law gathered around, curiously examining this odd-looking thing. Can it really catch fish? Eldest sister-in-law still didn't quite believe it. Won't we know if we try? I said with a smile, I'm going to set the trap by the river right now. Right now? Second sister-in-law looked at the sky. It's almost dark. How about going tomorrow instead? Nighttime is perfect. Fish are more active at night and more likely to enter the trap. As I spoke, I started to head out. Wait. Eldest sister-in-law called out to stop me and hurried into the house. Before long, she came back with an old jacket covered in patches. It's cool at night, put this on. She helped drape it over me and carefully fastened the buttons, her eyes full of concern. Be careful, and don't go into deep water. Got it, sister-in-law. My heart felt warm. Third sister-in-law said even more directly, 𝐓𝐫𝐽, how about I go with you? I quickly waved my hands. No, I'll be fine on my own. You all wait at home. I'll be back very soon. Carrying the fish trap, I strode out of the courtyard. Relying on the original owner's memories, I soon found the little river outside the village. Sure enough, just like in those memories, the river was almost dried up. The once broad riverbed now had only a thin stream left running through the middle, and most stretches of the river had exposed their cracked, dry bottoms. I walked downstream along the bank. Finally, at a bend in the river, I found a pool that was still fairly deep. It looked like a pit left behind from sand digging, now the only place in the river that could still hold water. The pool wasn't large, and the water was a deep green. By the moonlight, I could vaguely see ripples on the surface, which meant there really were fish in it. My heart leaped with joy. I carefully surveyed the surroundings and chose a spot thick with aquatic plants. Fish like to gather in places like that most. From inside my clothes, I took out the bait I had prepared in advance, a few crumbled balls of wild vegetables. I had even dug them out from a corner of the kitchen at home. Who knew how long they'd been there? They were all dried out. But to fish driven desperate by hunger, this was already a delicacy. I stuffed the bait into the fish trap, then carefully lowered the trap into the water. I used a rope to secure the trap beneath a rock on the riverbed, with the other end tied to a tree root on the bank. After finishing all this, I let out a long breath. Now all I had to do was wait until tomorrow to collect the results. Looking at the rippling water under the moonlight, my heart was full of anticipation. This was not just a trap full of fish, it was their hope of survival. It was his first step toward establishing himself in this unfamiliar era. I stood by the river a while longer, making sure the fish trap was set securely before finally turning back. My steps were light, and my mood brighter than ever before. Tomorrow would definitely be a good day. I believed it. That whole night, 𝐿𝐵 slept very restlessly. Lying on the hard earthen Kong, he tossed and turned like a pancake on a griddle. His mind was full of that fish trap sunk in the water. One moment, he worried the fish wouldn't go in at all. The next, he feared the trap would be washed away by the current. He even dreamed that Wang Laowu and his gang had stolen the fish trap. He was so anxious that he jolted awake several times in the middle of the night. As soon as a faint gray light began to show outside the window, he could no longer lie still. He climbed down from the Kong as quietly as possible, afraid of waking the sisters-in-law sleeping in the next room. The morning air carried a chill, cool and refreshing as he breathed it in. The village was silent, with only the occasional weak crow of a rooster. He almost ran all the way to the riverside. His heart was pounding, and his palms were even starting to sweat. From a distance, he saw that the tree was still there, and the rope tied to its roots was still there too. Only then did he feel a little more at ease. When he reached the bank, he crouched down and grabbed the wet hemp rope with both hands. He took a deep breath and started pulling. The rope was stretched taut, and it felt heavy. There's something in it. Lin Bei was overjoyed, and he pulled even harder. The fish trap broke through the surface, splashing water everywhere. In the dim morning light, a loud flapping sound came from inside the trap. Alive. They're all alive. He quickly dragged the fish trap onto the bank and impatiently opened the tightly tied small end to take a look. The moment he saw what was inside, he was so happy he almost shouted. The trap was packed and lively beyond belief. There were 4 or 5 palm-sized 𝐒𝐭𝐽, their scales flashing silver in the morning light as they desperately thrashed their tails. There was also a pile of transparent little river shrimp bouncing around inside. What surprised him most was that there were even 2 silly little crabs crouching in the corner of the trap. This catch far exceeded his expectations. He had originally thought that catching 1 or 2 small fish would already be pretty good. He hadn't expected this fish trap to work so well. Wonderful. He couldn't help letting out a low shout and pumping his fist hard. Just then, that familiar voice in his head rang out right on time. Harvest successful. Obtained crucian carp x5, river shrimp x20, crabs x2. Reward points +5. Constitution +3. A distinct warm current instantly surged through his entire body. It was much weaker than the feeling from yesterday's repair fluid, but he could clearly feel it. It was like soaking in warm water, incredibly comfortable. The muscles on his body seemed a little firmer too. The bit of fatigue from getting up early and running vanished completely as well. He tried clenching his fist and felt that he had grown a little stronger again. The world before his eyes seemed a little clearer too. It seemed this system really was reliable. Work, and there are rewards. He carefully poured the catch out of the trap and into a battered wooden bucket he had brought with him. He baited the fish trap again and lowered it back into the water. Only then did he carry the heavy wooden bucket and head home with light steps. Along the way, he was in such a good mood that he felt like singing. Now let's see if the sisters-in-law are still worried. He practically jogged all the way home. The courtyard gate creaked open, and 𝐿i, who was sweeping the yard, looked up. "Xiao Bei, this early in the morning you." Her words caught in her throat halfway through. Her eyes stared fixedly at the wooden bucket in Lin Bei's hand. The crackling, flapping sounds coming from inside were simply too enticing. "Big sister-in-law. Look." Lin Bei set the wooden bucket on the ground like he was presenting a treasure. The broom in 𝐿i hand fell to the ground with a smack. She rushed over in a few quick steps and stared at the fish and shrimp in the bucket in disbelief. "This, you caught all of these?" Her voice was trembling. "Yeah, I caught them with that fish trap from yesterday," Lin Bei said proudly. At that moment, Wang Zuolan and Zhao Xiaoman were startled too, and ran out of the house. What is it? What happened?" Wang Zuolan asked while fastening her clothes. The moment she saw what was in the wooden bucket, her eyes went wide. "My good heavens! So many fish!" Zhao Xiaoman crouched right down by the wooden bucket and carefully reached out a finger to touch the tail of a crucian carp. The fish suddenly flicked its tail, sending a few droplets splashing up and making her yelp as she fell flat onto the ground. Everyone burst out laughing. How long had it been since this family last heard laughter like this? They really caught some. 𝐿i murmured to herself, her eyes reddening a little. She quickly turned away and wiped her eyes with her sleeve. "This is wonderful. We can finally have a good meal today." Zhao Xiaoman climbed up from the ground and clapped her hands excitedly. Wang Zuolan was wiping at the corners of her eyes too. "I'll go boil some water." The whole family immediately sprang into action. Wang Zuolan went to the kitchen to start the fire. 𝐿i found the family's only iron pot, its rim chipped a little, and carefully scrubbed it clean. Zhao Xiaoman squatted in the yard, learning from Lin Bei how to clean the fish. "Like this, use your fingernail to catch the scales and push forward against them," Lin Bei explained while demonstrating. His hands were skillful, and in just a few strokes he had scraped a fish clean of scales. Zhao Xiaoman copied him and tried clumsily. "Ah, the fish is so slippery, I can't hold it." "Third sister-in-law, grip it tighter." "Right, just like that." Watching her busy younger brother and younger sister in the yard, and the lively fish and shrimp in the bucket, 𝐓𝐫𝐤𝐞 showed a long-lost smile on her face. She walked into the kitchen to help 𝐒𝐭𝐚𝐽. She carefully pinched out a tiny bit of the last coarse salt in the house and put it into the pot. Then she sliced 2 shriveled pieces of ginger, saved from last year and always too precious to eat. The water came to a boil, and white steam spread through the kitchen. It carried a sweet fishy scent. But to people who had been hungry for so long, that smell was nothing less than heaven. 𝐓𝐫𝐤𝐞 dumped all the cleaned fish and shrimp into the pot at once. With a sizzle, steam billowed up. She carefully stirred with a wooden spoon. The fish soup slowly turned milky white. That delicious fresh aroma grew stronger and stronger, filling the whole yard and even drifting beyond it. Xiao Xiaoman kept sniffing. It smells so good. So good. Wang Zuolan stood by the pot, staring without blinking at the bubbling fish soup, swallowing hard again and again. Lin Bei also felt his stomach growling even more fiercely. The fish soup was finally done. 𝐓𝐫𝐤𝐞 carried the pot to the small wooden table in the yard. It was the only decent piece of furniture the family had. 4 chipped bowls were set out, each ladled full of fish soup, along with roughly equal portions of fish and shrimp. Milky white fish soup, tender white fish, pink shrimp. Just looking at it made their mouths water. The 4 of them sat around the table, but no one made the first move. They looked at one another. In the end, 𝐓𝐫𝐤𝐞 spoke first. Eat. Her voice was a little choked up. Eat it while it's hot. Lin Bei picked up his bowl first and took a sip of the soup. The scalding fish soup slid down his throat, so deliciously fresh it nearly made his tongue fall off. Delicious, he said indistinctly, picking up a piece of fish and stuffing it into his mouth. The fish was tender and silky, melting in his mouth. Though it was seasoned with only a tiny bit of salt, it was already delicious enough. Seeing how happily he ate, the 3 sisters-in-law finally picked up their bowls too. Wang Zuolan sipped the soup in small mouthfuls, and as she drank, tears began to fall. Great big teardrops plopped into her bowl. She didn't even wipe them away, just kept drinking as she cried. Xiao Xiaoman ate too quickly and almost got choked by a fish bone, coughing until her face turned red, yet she still couldn't bear to put down her bowl. 𝐓𝐫𝐤𝐞 ate the slowest. She chewed each bite of fish carefully, as if savoring some incomparable delicacy. As she ate, her eyes also reddened. If only father, mother, and your brothers were still here, how wonderful that would be. That one sentence made everyone fall silent. Wang Zuolan's sobbing grew louder. Xiao Xiaoman also lowered her head and wiped her eyes. Lin Bei felt bad too. He put down his bowl and looked at his 3 sisters-in-law very seriously. Sisters-in-law, don't cry. If father, mother, and my brothers are watching over us from heaven, they would surely want us to live well. From now on, our days will only get better and better. I promise. His voice was not loud, but it was firm. 𝐓𝐫𝐤𝐞 wiped away her tears and nodded hard. Right. Xiaobei is right. We have to live well. She picked up the biggest shrimp and placed it in Lin Bei's bowl. Xiaobei, eat more. You worked the hardest today. Wang Zuolan also picked a piece of fish belly meat from her bowl and put it into Lin Bei's. That's right. Xiaobei, you're still growing. Eat more. Xiao Xiaoman followed suit and also tried to put her shrimp into his bowl. Lin Bei quickly covered his bowl. That's enough. That's enough. Sisters-in-law, you should eat yourselves. I still have plenty in my bowl. His heart felt warm. This feeling of being cared for and needed was truly wonderful. And so the 4 of them, crying and smiling at the same time, finished this hard-won fish meal. Everyone ate until their bellies were round. That real, solid feeling of fullness had been absent for far too long. After the meal, Wang Zuolan rushed to wash the dishes. Xiao Xiaoman hovered around Lin Bei, chattering away as she asked about the fish trap. Xiaobei, how is that trap so amazing? Will it still catch fish tomorrow? It should, Lin Bei said with a smile. From now on, we'll be able to eat fish every day. 𝐓𝐫𝐤𝐞 sat on the doorstep, watching her younger brother and younger sister laughing and talking in the yard, and watching Wang Zuolan busy in the kitchen. She let out a long sigh of relief. The huge stone that had weighed on her heart for so long seemed to have finally loosened a little. She looked at Lin Bei, her eyes full of trust and pride. This little brother-in-law had really changed. He had become the pillar of this family. Sensing his eldest sister-in-law's gaze, Lin Bei turned back and smiled at her. In his heart, he silently said thank you to the system. He also became even more determined to live well in this era. Not only to survive, but to lead his sisters-in-law into a better life. He had the system and the knowledge from his previous life. There had to be a way, and so the days passed one by one. Lin Bei now had a fixed routine. Every evening, when the sun was about to set, he would carry the fish trap to the riverside. Carefully, He would lower the trap into that familiar pool. Before dawn the next day, he would spring out of bed and run to the riverside to retrieve the trap. This had already become an unshakable habit. As for the catch, it varied. Sometimes the trap would be packed full, with several crucian carp, plus quite a few river shrimp and little crabs. Sometimes it was less impressive, maybe only 1 or 2 small fish, along with a few scattered tiny shrimp. But no matter how much there was, he never came back empty-handed. Even on the worst day, there were still 2 finger-length little fish and a small handful of shrimp. Relying on these fish and shrimp, the family finally no longer had to go hungry. Although they were still far from eating their fill, at least they could drink hot fish soup and eat some fish every morning and evening. With food in their bellies, people naturally had more spirit. The 3 sisters-in-law gradually got a bit of color back in their faces. They no longer looked as frighteningly sallow and waxy as before. Every morning, when 𝐿𝐵 returned home carrying the catch, that familiar voice in his mind would always sound right on time. Harvest successful. Obtained crucian carp x3, river shrimp x15. Reward points +3, constitution +1. Or, harvest successful. Obtained crucian carp x1, crab x1. Reward points +1, constitution +1. As the voice faded, a warm current, sometimes strong and sometimes weak, would circulate through his body. It was like parched earth meeting a light rain, incredibly soothing. After several days, he could clearly feel that his body was changing. At first, when he carried a wooden bucket full of fish back home from the river, he would feel a little out of breath, and his arms would ache a bit. Now it was completely different. A bucket of the same weight felt light in his hands. He could jog all the way back without even breathing hard. It felt like he had endless strength in his whole body. He secretly tested it. The stone mill in the yard that used to take a tremendous amount of effort to budge could now be pushed with one hand. The changes in his body were also obvious. The flesh on his arms had grown firm and felt hard to the touch. His chest no longer looked like a row of clearly defined ribs, either it had gained a bit of shape. He seemed to have grown a tiny bit taller too, and the pant legs that had originally been a little short now reached just to his ankles. The changes weren't limited to strength. His movements had become much more nimble as well. He walked with a spring in his step, and his reactions were extremely quick. One morning while collecting the traps, a water bird fluttered out of the reeds. With one glance, he could clearly see even how many especially long feathers there were on its wings. That really startled him. After all, this body's original owner used to have poor eyesight. Anything a little farther away looked blurry. But now, even a sparrow hopping on a treetop dozens of meters away, he could clearly see which way the sparrow's tail was tilted. His hearing also seemed to have improved. At night, lying on the kong, he could hear the chirping of tiny insects in the grass outside the yard much more clearly than before. This constitution enhancement from the system really was something genuinely good. It didn't just strengthen his muscles and physical power, even his 5 senses improved along with it. Fish and shrimp could fill the stomach, but eating them for too long still got tiresome. And relying on fish and shrimp alone still made the nutrition too limited. 𝐿𝐵 figured he had to find a way to get some other things to eat. That afternoon, looking at the leftover shorter bamboo strips and bits of hemp rope in the yard, he got an idea. Fish traps were relatively large and needed longer materials. These shorter scraps and offcuts were perfect for weaving some smaller gadgets. Recalling the diagram knowledge in his mind, he quickly settled on 2 new tools. One was a shrimp trap. It was much smaller than a fish trap, with a tighter opening, made specifically to deal with those little shrimp that liked to slip into cracks. The other was a ground trap, long and tube-like. It could be laid horizontally in shallow water or under aquatic plants to catch bottom-dwelling small fish and shrimp, as well as loaches and the like. He got to work immediately. Carrying a small stool into the yard, he sat down and started weaving again. His eldest sister-in-law, 𝐿𝐵, came out of the house, saw him tinkering again, and couldn't help asking, "𝐶𝐵, what are you making this time?" "Sister-in-law, I'm weaving a few small traps." 𝐿𝐵 looked up and smiled. "Just relying on that big fish trap, what we eat is still too limited. I'll make a few small ones and see if I can catch something else to change up the menu." 𝐿𝐵 watched 𝐿𝐵's skillful movements, her eyes full of relief. "You're such a smart child. That tattered old book really did help you learn some real skills." She no longer had any doubts at all about the things 𝐿𝐵 was making. The facts were right there in front of her. That strange-looking fish trap really had kept their family from ever going hungry again. 𝐿𝐵 spent the whole afternoon weaving 2 shrimp traps and 1 ground trap. Looking at his new creations, he nodded in satisfaction. Early tomorrow morning, he would set them all in the river. With multiple approaches at once, the harvest would definitely be even better. During the few days 𝐿𝐵 was busy weaving the new traps, He vaguely felt that someone seemed to be starting to pay attention to their family behind their backs. The first to notice was second sister-in-law 𝐓𝐫𝐚𝐧𝐬𝐭. She was observant and timid too. One evening, she quietly tugged 𝐓𝐵 aside and whispered, "𝐓𝐵, why do I feel like people have been sneaking glances into our yard lately?" 𝐓𝐵's heart stirred. "Second sister-in-law, did you see who it was?" "I didn't see the face clearly." 𝐓𝐫𝐚 shook her head, looking a little uneasy. "It just felt like there was a shadow moving around outside the yard. The moment I went out, the person ran off." Less than 2 days later, third sister-in-law 𝐁𝐨𝐤𝐿 also came rushing over to 𝐓𝐵 in a fluster. She said that while she had been playing by the courtyard gate just now, she saw 𝐸_Dan, the little grandson of Grandma's son next door, peeking in through the crack in the gate with drool hanging from his mouth. 𝐁𝐨𝐤𝐿 asked him what he was looking at. Sniffling his runny nose, 𝐸_Dan said, "Aunt 𝐁𝐸𝐿, what is your family making? Why does it smell so good every day?" "My grandma said your family must be cooking something delicious." Even the most composed eldest sister-in-law, 𝐓𝐫𝐤𝐿, frowned and said that when she went to the river to wash clothes today, she ran into that widow Zhang from the village. In the past, widow Zhang would at most just nod when she saw her, but today she actually came over on her own to start a conversation. She chatted about this and that for quite a while before finally pretending to ask casually, "Sister 𝐓𝐫𝐤𝐿, I see your 𝐓𝐵 has seemed quite energetic lately, running to the river every day. What is he busy with?" 𝐓𝐫𝐤𝐿 brushed her off vaguely, saying the child was just fooling around. But inwardly, she had started to feel uneasy too. After hearing what his sisters-in-law said, 𝐓𝐵 understood. It seemed that the fishy smell and the aroma of cooked fish drifting out of their home every day had, in the end, attracted some people's attention. In times like these, no family was having an easy time. Suddenly, there was this one household, an orphan and widowed mother on the verge of not being able to get by, yet they were somehow able to light the stove and cook every day, with even a faint smell of meat drifting out. It would have been hard not to draw attention. He felt a little wary, but he wasn't too surprised. This was bound to be found out sooner or later. He just hadn't expected it to happen so soon. "Sisters-in-law, don't worry," 𝐓𝐵 comforted them. "We don't steal and we don't rob. We're relying on our own skills to get ourselves something to eat, so we're not afraid of what people say." That was what he said, but in his heart he was already making plans. From now on, when going to the river to set and collect the traps, he would have to be more careful and avoid people as much as possible. It seemed that relying on fishing alone was not a long-term solution. He still had to think of other ways. Looking at the newly woven shrimp traps and ground trap in the yard, he felt a stronger sense of urgency. He had to store up more food and save up more points. Only by strengthening his body as soon as possible could he deal with the trouble that might come. The glow of the setting sun shone into the little courtyard, stretching his busy figure long across the ground. Beneath the brief calm of this small rural yard, an undercurrent seemed to be beginning to stir. They had eaten fish and shrimp for 7 or 8 days straight. 𝐓𝐵 felt as if his tongue was about to turn into a fish tail. It wasn't that he was sick of eating them. The main thing was that this stuff just wasn't filling. After drinking 2 bowls of fish soup, one piss and his stomach would be empty again. And eating only fish always made him feel like his body lacked a bit of strength. He figured he needed to get some real meat to eat. Wild rabbits, pheasants, and the like. Now that was what you called meat. It felt substantial to chew and filling to swallow. That night, lying in bed, he brought up the system panel. Over the past few days of catching fish and shrimp, he had scraped together a little over 20 points in bits and pieces. He hadn't decided how to use them yet. Now he had a goal. He started browsing through the system shop. There weren't many items, but the categories were quite clear. Very quickly, he found what he wanted. Basic trap making knowledge. Costs 20 points. Includes crafting and placement techniques for various simple hunting traps. This is the one. 𝐓𝐵 chose to redeem it without hesitation. In a flash, 20 points were gone. But his mind was suddenly filled with a lot of new knowledge. How to identify animal tracks. How to find the paths they often used. How to make snares. How to set up deadfall traps. It was all crystal clear, plain as day. It was as if he had been an old hunter all along. Early the next morning, after collecting his fish traps, he didn't head straight home. Instead, he turned and slipped into the mountain forest beside the village. This time he wasn't wandering around aimlessly, he had a purpose. He needed to find suitable materials. To make traps, he needed springy branches and sturdy vines. He wandered through the woods for nearly half a day. He specifically picked straight hazel and hickory branches of suitable thickness. He chopped them down with his machete and trimmed off the smaller twigs. Then he found several kinds of especially tough wild vines and pulled together a huge bundle. When he carried all that back home, even his 3 sisters-in-law were stunned. 𝐓𝐵, What are you bringing back so many branches and vines for? His third sister-in-law, 𝐲𝐤𝐿, circled the pile of materials with a curious look on her face. They're way too damp to use as firewood. Not for firewood. 𝐿𝐵 wiped the sweat from his forehead and grinned. I'm going to make something good for you to see. He brought over a small stool, sat down in the yard, and got to work. Following the knowledge in his head, he first bent the branches into suitable arcs. He bound them tightly with vines, making loops of various sizes. These were snares, specifically for catching the ankles of wild rabbits and pheasants. Then he picked out a few thicker, sturdier branches and made several lever-type traps. These were even more powerful if he got lucky. He might even catch something bigger, like a badger. His hands were skillful, and his movements were quick too. In his hands, those branches and vines soon turned into one contraption after another that looked a little strange, but also had a certain ingeniousness to them. His eldest sister-in-law, 𝐿𝐶, watched from the kitchen doorway, a hint of worry in her eyes. 𝐲𝐵, what you're making? Those are snares for catching wild game, aren't they? Yeah, eldest sister-in-law. 𝐿𝐵 didn't even raise his head, busy tying the slip knot on the last snare. Fish alone won't do, we need some meat. Will this really work? His second sister-in-law, 𝐓𝐫𝐚𝐧𝐬𝐭, asked softly. The animals in the mountains are all clever. Your elder brothers set traps before too, but 9 times out of 10 they came up empty. The methods written in my old tattered book are different. 𝐿𝐵 held up a finished snare and said confidently, just wait to eat some meat. That afternoon, when the sun was slanting westward, 𝐿𝐵 slung the 7 or 8 finished traps over his back and headed into the mountains again. This time he didn't linger around the edge of the woods. He went straight deeper in. With his head lowered, his eyes swept over the ground like a broom, searching carefully. Very soon, he spotted a string of tiny tracks, shaped like plum blossoms. Rabbit tracks. He followed them forward and found a narrow little path, trampled bare and hidden in the grass. This was a rabbit trail. Animals are used to following the same old paths, just like people. He chose several spots and carefully set the snares. The loop opening was positioned right in the middle of the path, a fist height above the ground. He camouflaged them slightly with dead leaves and loose soil. Unless you looked closely, you wouldn't notice them at all. Then, at a spot where there was animal droppings, he set up that lever trap. After finishing all that, it was almost dusk. He patted the dirt off his hands, his heart full of anticipation. Tomorrow morning, he'd come back to check the results. Feeling pleased with himself, he headed down the mountain. What he didn't know was that several people had watched everything he did that day. Wang Laowu from the village entrance was squatting behind an earthen slope with his 2 old bachelor brothers, muttering among themselves. See that? That kid from the Lin family went up the mountain again. Wang Laowu narrowed his eyes, staring at 𝐿𝐵's receding figure. How many times has this been already? Every day he's either running to the riverbank or heading into the mountains. Exactly. A gap-toothed old man beside him smacked his lips. I saw him carrying stuff home from the river. Looked pretty heavy. Seemed like fish? Fish. Wang Laowu's eyes lit up, then he frowned again. Bullshit. That river's almost dried up. I've gone down there myself to feel around, and there wasn't a damn thing. He's just a half-grown kid. How could he catch fish? Then what the hell's he been busy with every day? The other skinny tall man scratched his head. I saw him carrying down a lot of branches and vines from the mountain earlier, and now he's gone back up empty-handed, all mysterious-like. Wang Laowu stroked the few sparse hairs on his chin, his small eyes gleaming shrewdly. Something strange is always behind unusual behavior. He lowered his voice. I think this kid must have found some way to get food. No way, right? The gap-toothed old man sounded doubtful. He's just a little brat. What way could he have found? The hell do you know? Wang Laowu shot him a glare. Didn't you smell it? These past few days, smells have been drifting out of his house every day. That's the aroma of something being cooked. His family stove used to be cold as ice. Once he put it that way, the other 2 also realized it. Yeah, those widows in the Lin family used to look starved every single day, their faces greenish with hunger. Lately, they actually do look a bit more human. Let's go? Wang Laowu stood up and patted the dirt off his backside. Let's follow him and see. Let's find out what exactly he's up to. The 3 of them sneakily felt their way along the path 𝐿𝐵 had taken down the mountain earlier. They didn't dare follow too closely for fear of being discovered, so they just wandered around aimlessly in the woods. And after wandering around, they really did find something. Hey, look here. The skinny tall man suddenly called out in a low voice, pointing at something half hidden in the grass. Wang Laowu and the gap-toothed old man hurried over. Pushing aside the grass, they took a look. It was a strange-looking cage woven from branches and vines, with more than half of it submerged in a pool by the riverbank. with only a small section sticking above the water. If they hadn't gotten so close, they would never have noticed it. What's this thing? The gap-toothed old man reached out to touch it. Don't move. Wang Laowu slapped his hand away. He circled the strange cage twice, his small eyes full of greed and confusion. Could this be for catching fish? This piece of junk can catch fish? The skinny tall man said with a look of disdain. Wang Laowu said nothing. He crouched down and examined it carefully. He saw the rope tied to the cage, stretching all the way to the shore and fastened beneath a tree root. The rope was soaking wet, clearly dragged often. He narrowed his eyes, seeming to understand something. Damn, he cursed under his breath, his face showing both jealousy and hatred. Looks like that kid from the Lin family has been getting fish with this lousy cage. Really? The other two instantly turned red-eyed with envy. In these times when people were starving to death, being able to find a stable source of food was an extraordinary skill. Brother Wu, then should we? The gap-toothed old man licked his cracked lips, a vicious glint appearing in his eyes. Take this thing from him? Wang Laowu stared at the fish trap, his heart struggling fiercely. If they snatched it, it would be a bit shameful, stealing food from a child. If we don't take it, just standing by and watching others eat their fill while we're so hungry our stomachs are touching our backs feels even worse. He mulled it over for a long time, then finally gritted his teeth. Don't touch it yet, he said in a low voice to his two accomplices. Let us keep watching. Just having fish is nothing much. I saw that kid messing around on the mountain for half the day today. Maybe he's got other tricks too. Let us first find out what he's really up to, and then a vicious smile appeared on his face. Take it all in one sweep, the fish trap and his methods for catching wild game too. The three old bachelors looked at one another, each seeing greed and malice in the other's eyes. They secretly glanced once more at the fish trap in the water, then slipped away soundlessly like shadows. The river kept flowing slowly. That fish trap lay quietly submerged in the water, waiting for tomorrow's catch, unaware that a plot against it had already quietly begun. That night, Lin Bei was even more excited than when he had been waiting to check the fish trap. Lying on the calm, his mind was full of those traps in the mountains. He tossed and turned, one moment imagining a snare catching a wild rabbit, and the next worrying that he might come up with nothing at all. Before dawn had fully broken, he sprang up. Sneaking out quietly, he braved the chill of the early morning and headed straight for the mountain. His heart pounded like he had a little rabbit tucked inside it. Following the markers he had made yesterday, he checked the traps he had set one by one. The first snare was empty. Even the blades of grass beside it hadn't moved. The second one was empty too. Lin Bei started to feel uneasy. Could this method not work? Or had the animals all gotten smarter? He walked over to the third snare. This one had been set on the clearest rabbit trail. From a distance, it didn't seem like there was any movement either. He sighed and walked over in disappointment, getting ready to take the snare down. But when he got closer, his eyes widened suddenly. The snare was gone. At the spot where it had originally been set, all that remained was trampled grass and a drag mark. Something was there. It caught something. Lin Bei's heart leaped into his throat. Following the trail, he carefully pushed aside the grass and searched forward. After only 2 or 3 steps, he heard a rustling sound from ahead, mixed with a faint fluttering noise. He quickened his pace and rushed over for a look. Oh wow! A plump, gray-brown wild rabbit had one of its hind legs caught tight in the snare and was desperately kicking with its other 3 legs, struggling in place. When the rabbit saw someone coming, it struggled even harder, its red eyes full of terror. It caught one. It really caught one. Lin Bei was so happy, he almost shouted out loud. He dashed forward, pinned the rabbit down deftly, and untied the snare. This rabbit was really fat. It felt heavy in his hand, probably weighing 4 or 5 kg. Its fur was smooth, and it felt warm to the touch. It kept kicking in his hands. This was real, honest-to-goodness meat, far more filling than fish and shrimp. Just as he stood there holding the rabbit, feeling delighted, the long-awaited voice finally sounded in his mind, and it was clearer and louder than ever before. First successful hunt. Obtained 1 wild rabbit. Reward points +20. Skill basic hunting mastery has been granted. The moment the voice faded, a surge of heat, even stronger than when his physique had been enhanced, rushed straight into his head. It wasn't exactly painful, but it felt a little swollen. Then, countless pieces of hunting knowledge poured into his memory like floodwaters bursting through a dam. How to identify the freshest tracks of various animals. How to determine an animal's species, size, and how long ago it passed by from its droppings. How to track it by observing the direction flattened grass lies and the marks left by broken branches. The habits of different animals, when they come out to forage, what routes they take. All this knowledge suddenly took root in his mind. It was as if he had been born an old hunter. The feeling was incredible. Lin Bei stood where he was, taking a moment to process the extra knowledge that had appeared in his head. He only felt that the world before his eyes seemed different again. The mountain was still that mountain, and the forest was still that forest. But now, in his eyes, information was everywhere, clues were everywhere. Carrying the fat rabbit, he happily headed down the mountain. Even his steps felt much lighter. As he walked, he unconsciously began using the hunting knowledge he had just learned, his eyes sweeping over the ground like spotlights. Hey, and with that look, he really did spot something. On a patch of damp mud not far from where he had set his traps, he found several different footprints, larger than rabbit tracks, with distinct toe marks and clear claw prints. Nearby were also several piles of fresh droppings. Lin Bei crouched down, carefully examined the shape of the droppings and the fibers inside. Then he used his fingers to gauge the depth and size of the footprints. A judgment automatically popped into his mind. A badger, and not a small badger at that. Judging by how fresh the tracks were and the moisture of the droppings, it couldn't have been more than 2 shurchen ago. In other words, around daybreak. This fellow had still been wandering around nearby. Lin Bei's heart grew excited again. A badger. That thing was even fatter, more rich with oil, and its pelt could be sold for money too. He quietly memorized this location and the characteristics of the signs. He began planning that tomorrow, right around here, he would set a few sturdier snares, or maybe make a spring pole trap. After calming his excitement, he carried the fat rabbit, which still kicked its legs now and then, and hurried home. The moment he entered the yard, he couldn't help but shout, "Sister-in-law, come take a look. See what I got." His eldest sister-in-law, 𝐓𝐫𝐤𝐞, was picking wild greens by the kitchen door. She looked up when she heard him shout. When she saw that grayish, plump thing hanging from Lin Bei's hand, the wild greens in her hand fell to the ground with a slap. Her mouth hung open, her eyes went round, as if she had seen something unbelievable. This is a rabbit? Even her voice went shrill. His second sister-in-law, Wang Suilan, and third sister-in-law, Zhao Xiaoman, also ran out of the house when they heard the commotion. What rabbit? Zhao Xiaoman asked as she ran. When she saw what was in Lin Bei's hand, she stopped short and let out a scream. Oh my God, it really is a rabbit. Alive. Wang Suilan directly covered her mouth, looking at the rabbit, then at Lin Bei, her eyes full of shock. Xiao Bei, this was really caught by you? As if it could be fake? Lin Bei lifted the rabbit a little higher and shook it proudly. It was caught with that snare I made yesterday. I went there first thing in the morning and found it trapped, still kicking its legs. The 3 sisters-in-law gathered around, staring at the fat rabbit without even blinking. In this mountainside village, hunting was an extremely difficult thing. Back in the village, even those strong laborers who used to go into the mountains in groups might spend 10 days to half a month without getting any decent game. Sometimes after working at it for half a day, bringing back a pheasant was already considered a blessing. But Lin Bei, a half-grown kid who had just turned 16, relied only on a few crude snares he made himself, and actually managed to snare such a fat wild rabbit. It was simply unbelievable. Xiao Bei, you really are. 𝐓𝐫𝐤𝐞 was so excited she didn't know what to say. She reached out and touched the rabbit's warm fur, confirming this wasn't a dream. Zhao Xiaoman was so excited she jumped up and down. This is great. We get to eat meat. We get to eat meat. Wang Suilan looked at the rabbit, then at Lin Bei, and her eyes suddenly reddened. Our family finally is hope. After the excitement passed, the family looked at the fat rabbit, but found themselves in a dilemma. How should they deal with this rabbit? Zhao Xiaoman swallowed and said, "Sister-in-law, let's do the rabbit, okay? Add some dried mushrooms. It'll smell amazing." Wang Suilan hesitated a little. This rabbit is pretty fat, so maybe we should keep it for now? Or take it to the market and trade it for some coarse grain, so it can last longer. 𝐓𝐫𝐤𝐞 said nothing. She looked at the rabbit, then glanced outside the courtyard gate, deep in thought. Lin Bei looked at his sisters-in-law, already having made up his mind. He cleared his throat and said, "Sisters-in-law, we can't keep this rabbit all to ourselves." As soon as Lin Bei said this, all 3 sisters-in-law were stunned. Zhao Xiaoman was the first to react, stomping her feet anxiously. "Xiao Bei, are you crazy? Such a big rabbit, how great would it be if we kept it for ourselves? How long has it been since we've had a taste of meat?" She looked longingly at the fat rabbit, practically drooling. Wang Suilan said nothing, but her eyes were also full of reluctance. In times like these, a single bite of food could mean a life, not to mention such a big chunk of meat. Only 𝐓𝐫𝐤𝐞 looked at Lin Bei's serious expression, thoughtful. "Xiao Bei, explain it carefully. Why do we have to give some away?" Lin Bei set the rabbit on the stone mill in the courtyard and patiently explained. Sisters-in-law, think about it. We've been eating fish every day lately, and that smell couldn't be hidden. Someone must have gotten jealous. If we suddenly start stewing rabbit meat now, the aroma will be even harder to hide. There are quite a few people in the village starving and desperate. He paused, lowering his voice. Haven't you also said that Wang Laowu and those few others have been hanging around our house all the time? Our family has only me, a half-grown boy, with you 3 women. If someone really gets bad ideas, can we hold them off? At these words, both Wang Zuolan and Zhao Xiaoman went a little pale. They remembered the figures lingering outside the courtyard a few days ago and felt a little frightened. That doesn't mean we should just give it away for nothing. Zhao Xiaoman muttered softly, still unwilling to part with it. Not for nothing. Lin Bei shook his head. This is buying peace and also buying a good reputation. He pointed at the rabbit. We'll give most of this rabbit to the few households in the village that are having the hardest time. For example, old Granny's son next door, who lives with her little grandson, 𝐸 they're almost starving to death. And Li the lame at the west end of the village, all alone. And widow Li at the south end, raising 3 children, she's having a hard time too. Giving it to them is both a good deed and a way of telling the whole village something. Our Lin family hasn't forgotten the neighbors. After coming into some good fortune, we value ties and take responsibility. That way, those thinking of crooked ideas will have to think twice before making a move, whether they'd be provoking public anger. After hearing this, Li Xiaoyun nodded heavily. She looked at Lin Bei, her gaze a little complicated. There was surprise, relief, and even more than that, pride. This child had truly grown up. He thought things through more thoroughly than even adults like them. Xiaobei is right. Li Xiaoyun made the final decision. This meat should be shared. She picked up the knife from the stove and skillfully cleaned the rabbit. Then, without hesitation, she cut off 1/3 of the larger portion and carefully wrapped it in clean dry grass. I'll take this to Granny's son's house right now. Wang Zuolan and Zhao Xiaoman looked at that larger portion of rabbit, their hearts aching with distress. But the eldest sister-in-law had spoken, and what Xiaobei said made sense, so they could only endure it. Carrying the bundle of meat, Li Xiaoyun took a deep breath and walked out of the yard. She first knocked on the broken wooden door of Grandma's son's house next door. The door creaked open a crack. Grandma's son, so thin she was little more than skin and bones, stuck her head out shakily. Xiaoyun, what is it? Her voice was hoarse and weak. Behind her, her little grandson 𝐸 hid behind her legs. Looking on timidly, his little face waxy yellow. Grandma Sunday Li Xiaoyun unwrapped the dry grass, revealing the red and white rabbit meat inside. Xiaobei got lucky today and snared a rabbit. I brought some over for you and 𝐸 to add a dish to your table. The moment the fresh meat was revealed, Grandma Sun's eyes went wide. She stared fixedly at that piece of meat, making a rasping sound in her throat, as if she could hardly catch her breath. After several seconds, she suddenly raised her head, looking at the meat and then at Li Xiaoyun. Her cloudy old eyes instantly filled with tears. This. I can't accept this, Xiaoyun. This is far too precious. She waved her hands again and again, stepping back. Your family doesn't have it easy either. Take it back, quick. Take it back. Grandma's son, please just accept it. Li Xiaoyun's heart ached, and she firmly stuffed the meat into the old woman's arms. Xiaobei said it himself. A close neighbor is better than a distant relative. Back when our family was having a hard time, you helped us plenty too. Those words reminded Grandma's son of something, and her tears flowed even harder. Holding that heavy piece of meat, her legs suddenly gave way, and she was about to kneel down. I'm thanking you on 𝐸 behalf. Thank Xiaobei too. This is life-saving food. Li Xiaoyun was so startled that she quickly held her up with all her strength. Please don't, Grandma's son. You're cutting our lives short by doing this. Only after much persuasion did she finally stop the old woman. After leaving Grandma's son's house, Li Xiaoyun went to Li the Lame's house. Li the Lame was a bachelor, with poor mobility, living in a shack on the west end of the village that was about to collapse. Seeing the meat Li Xiaoyun brought, this taciturn man immediately had red-rimmed eyes. His lips trembled, but he couldn't say a single word, only kept bowing in thanks. Finally, she went to Widow Li's house. Widow Li's husband went into the mountains last year and never came back, leaving her alone with 3 children crying for food. The youngest was so hungry he didn't even have the strength to cry anymore. At the sight of the meat, Widow Li burst into tears. The 3 children also crowded around the meat, their eyes glowing green as they kept swallowing their saliva. Li Xiaoyun looked at this heartbreaking scene and couldn't help shedding tears herself. She didn't stay long. She put down the meat and hurriedly left. She was afraid that if she kept watching, she wouldn't be able to resist taking out the half they had kept for their own family as well. News of 𝐓𝐫𝐤𝐞 delivering meat spread through the lifeless Kaohsiung village as fast as if it had grown wings. At first, some people didn't quite believe it. Really? The Lin family can't even get enough to eat themselves, and they're giving meat away? Exactly, and rabbit meat at that. That's real meat. Not until someone saw 𝐓𝐫𝐤𝐞 squatting by his door, carefully gnawing on a rabbit bone. Not until they saw smoke carrying the aroma of meat rising, for the first time ever, from the dilapidated chimney of Widow Li's house. Not until they saw Grandma Sun's little grandson Tai Dan, with an oily mouth, running and jumping around the village with energy again. Only then did the villagers truly believe it. For a time, the whole village was talking about it everywhere. Incredible. That boy from the Lin family has really made something of himself. Yeah, not only is he capable enough to catch a rabbit, he's kind-hearted too. I heard it was he who took the initiative to suggest sharing it with Grandma Sun and the others. Yes, he is a kind and righteous kid. Even better than his father was back in the day. Sigh. Think about what happened a while ago. Wang Laowu and his bunch secretly stole 2 sweet potatoes from old Zhang's family and nearly made the old man pass out from anger. Now look at Xiaobei. Really, comparing people kills. Comparing goods means throwing them away. Naturally, the villagers' gossip also reached the ears of Wang Laowu and his gang. The gap-toothed old man hurried into Wang Laowu's filthy, messy room. Fifth brother. This is bad. What are you yelling for? Wang Laowu was lying stiff on the Kong, cursing irritably. That boy from the Lin family. He gave the rabbit meat to Granny Sun, Li the cripple, and the others. The whole village is praising him. Wang Laowu shot upright, his tiny eyes full of shock and fury. What? He was really willing to do that? Absolutely true. Widow Li's family is already stewing meat. The aroma has drifted down half the street. Wang Laowu's expression turned ugly. He had originally planned to find a chance in the next couple of days to haul up Lin Bei's fish trap and force him to tell how he catches rabbits while he was at it. But now that things had turned out like this, he didn't quite dare make a move. That kid from the Lin family played this move beautifully. With just half a rabbit, he won over the poorest households in the village. If he went after Lin Bei now, Granny Sun and the other families who had benefited would definitely be the first to object. And those villagers who just liked watching the excitement would also stand on the Lin family's side. For a few fish and rabbits he might not even be able to catch. It wasn't worth provoking public outrage. Damn it. Wang Laowu slammed his fist against the edge of the Kong in hatred. This little bastard is sly as hell. Fifth brother. Then, are we still hauling up that fish trap or not? The gap-toothed old man asked tentatively. Haul my ass. Wang Laowu roared irritably. If we touch him now, aren't we just asking to get cursed out? He breathed heavily, his eyes full of jealousy and resentment. Just wait. I refuse to believe his luck will be this good every single time. We'll talk after the heat dies down. But the hatred and jealousy in his heart toward Lin Bei was like weeds impossible to burn out, growing back with every wind. In the Lin family courtyard, that half-rabbit was done stewing too. Even though only half was left, mixed with the wild scallions they had dug up and dried mushrooms, it still made a big pot of rich soup. The aroma of meat filled the air. This time, the smell of meat drifting from Lin Bei's home no longer brought only simple jealousy and prying eyes. What it drew instead were more complicated looks. There was gratitude, admiration, and a reassessment. The family sat around the small table, eating the hard-won rabbit meat. By now Wang Zuolan and Zhao Xiaoman had also come around, and ate with particular relish. 𝐓𝐫𝐤𝐞 picked the biggest piece of meat into Lin Bei's bowl. Xiaobei, what you did today was right. She looked at Lin Bei, her tone solemn. This meat feels right to eat. Lin Bei gnawed on a rabbit leg and smiled. He didn't say anything, but he could feel that something was different. That afternoon, when he went to the riverside to collect the shrimp traps. On the way, he ran into several villagers, and they all took the initiative to greet him. Xiaobei, going to check the traps? Yeah, that's right, uncle. Watch your step. It just rained, and it's slippery. Thanks, uncle, got it. The simple exchange carried a familiarity that hadn't been there before, and a trace of respect. Even the old carpenter at the east end of the village, who usually kept to himself, gave him a rare nod when he saw him. Lin Bei knew that half-rabbit had not been shared out in vain. In this village, he was no longer an insignificant half-grown boy who needed people's pity. He had a name now, he had ability, and he also had a bit of weight to his words, though it was still very slight. But this was only the beginning. Carrying the heavy shrimp traps, he looked at the quiet village in the light of the setting sun. In his heart, he understood. Starting today, he, Lin Bei, had truly established himself in this mountainside village. But it still wasn't enough. because right now he was only helping a few people. Only if everyone in the village could benefit from him. Only then could he truly gain a firm foothold. Now when Lin Bei went up the mountain to check the traps, he felt much more confident. It wasn't like at the beginning, when he was full of anxiety. These past few days, his haul had been quite good. Almost every day, he could take 1 or 2 plump wild rabbits or brightly colored pheasants off the snares. The system notification sounds in his mind also kept ringing nonstop. Harvested 1 pheasant, reward points +3, constitution +1. Harvested 1 wild rabbit, reward points +2, constitution +1. His points kept climbing bit by bit. The warm current in his body also circulated from time to time. He could clearly feel that he had become much stronger. His eyesight had also grown sharper. Even if leaves rustled dozens of meters away, he could tell exactly what bird it was. Early this morning, while the sky was still gray and dim, Lin Bei, as usual, carried an empty basket on his back and headed briskly into the mountains. Following the little path he had worn out himself, he checked the traps he had set one by one. The first snare was empty. He didn't pay it much mind and kept walking. The second snare had caught a gray rabbit, which was still kicking. He deftly untied it and tossed it into the basket. When he reached the area near the third trap, his steps suddenly halted. Something was wrong. This place was far too messy. He remembered clearly that the deadfall trap he had set yesterday was made from a thick tree branch. It was specifically meant for dealing with badgers, or if luck was on his side, maybe it could even hit a small wild boar. But now, that thick branch was gone. The place where the trap had originally been set was in complete disarray. The dead leaves and dirt on the ground had been churned up everywhere. Even a clump of bushes nearby had been knocked all out of shape. There was also a deep drag mark on the ground, stretching all the way into the depths of the woods. Judging from the commotion, this definitely wasn't something a small animal like a badger could have caused. Lin Bei's heart immediately tightened. He set down the basket and drew the sharpened chopper from the small of his back. He gripped the handle tightly, his palms starting to sweat a little. He took a deep breath and carefully followed the obvious trail inward. He made his steps extremely light, pricking up his ears to listen to the sounds around him. After walking about a dozen meters and circling around a dense patch of bushes, the sight before him made him suck in a sharp breath. A pitch-black, incredibly burly wild boar was snorting heavily and pacing in circles. Near its shoulder, one of its front legs had been pinned fast by a sharpened, thick branch, and blood had dyed the surrounding fur red. That branch was the deadfall bar from his trap. This wild boar was no small one. It looked to weigh at least 70 or 80 _. 2 tusks jutted out from the sides of its mouth, gleaming with a cold light. A vicious glint shone in its small eyes, making it look both pained and enraged. Lin Bei's appearance had clearly provoked it. Letting out a low roar, it dragged its injured front leg and actually charged straight at Lin Bei. Despite being injured, it wasn't slow at all. Like a little tank, it came barreling forward with a bloody, beastly reek. Lin Bei was startled, but he didn't panic. His enhanced body reacted extremely fast. Just as the wild boar rushed up to him, he suddenly darted to the side, nimbly dodging the charge. At the same time, spotting the right opening, the chopper in his hand slashed viciously at the side of the wild boar's neck. With a wet thunk, the chopper sank in more than halfway. Hot blood sprayed out, splattering all over Lin Bei's hand. The wild boar let out a shrill, miserable scream. It staggered forward several steps, then fell to the ground with a thud. Its forelegs twitched as it snorted and gasped for breath, clearly on its last legs. Lin Bei didn't dare go up to it right away. He gripped the knife and waited vigilantly for a while. Only after the wild boar was completely motionless did he slowly approach. He gave it a kick with his foot to make sure it was truly dead. Only then did he let out a long breath. Feeling a chill on his back, he had broken out in a cold sweat just now. Looking at the huge beast on the ground, he felt a lingering fear, but even more so, wild joy. This was a wild boar, a whole pile of meat. Just then, the system's voice sounded in his mind, more impassioned than ever before. Successfully hunted large prey, a wild boar. Reward points +100. Constitution +10. An unprecedentedly powerful warm current instantly swept through his entire body. It felt so good, he almost groaned out loud. He felt like all the muscles in his body had swollen a bit, filled with explosive power. This reward was incredibly generous. And it wasn't over yet. The system notification sounded again. Continuous gratitude energy received. Gratitude value has reached the upper limit. System has met the upgrade conditions. It will automatically upgrade after the host completes this distribution. Lin Bei froze for a moment, then understood. This had to be the continuous gratitude from Grandma's son and the others after he gave them rabbit meat, accumulating to its peak. He suppressed the excitement in his heart. Looking at the wild boar on the ground, he found himself troubled again. How was he supposed to get this big guy back? He tried it and could barely carry it, but walking mountain paths like that would be too exhausting. After thinking it over, he chopped down 2 thick branches with the machete and tied together a simple drag frame with sturdy vines. He got the wild boar onto the frame and dragged it down the mountain. It was slower this way, but it saved a lot of effort. By the time he dragged such a huge thing back to the village, the whole village was in an uproar. Good heavens! A wild boar. It's 𝐓𝐫. 𝐓𝐫 brought back a wild boar. The villagers all ran out of their houses and gathered around to watch, their eyes wide as saucers. Hearing the commotion, the 3 sisters-in-law ran out too. And when they saw 𝐓𝐵 and the wild boar behind him, they were all stunned. 𝐓𝐵, you're not hurt, are you? Eldest sister-in-law 𝐒𝐨𝐤𝐿's face went pale with fright as she hurried forward and checked him over from head to toe. I'm fine, eldest sister-in-law, I'm perfectly okay. 𝐓𝐵 grinned, revealing 2 rows of white teeth. Second sister-in-law 𝐓𝐿𝐤𝐿 and third sister-in-law 𝐁𝐨𝐮 looked at the wild boar, then at 𝐓𝐵, too excited to speak. After dragging the wild boar into the courtyard, 𝐓𝐵, without bothering to rest, called the 3 sisters-in-law into the house. Sisters-in-law, I plan to keep only 1/3 of this wild boar. What? 𝐁𝐨𝐿 was the first to cry out. Keep so little? Wouldn't it be great for us to eat it ourselves? 𝐁𝐨𝐿. 𝐒𝐨𝐤𝐿 tugged at her, then looked at 𝐓𝐵. 𝐁𝐵, what are you thinking? 𝐓𝐵 explained his reasoning. This wild boar is too big, our family can't finish it, and we can't keep it for long either. The whole village is watching. If we keep it all for ourselves, there'll be even more jealous people. Better to hand most of it over to the old village chief and let him distribute it to the whole village. We'll keep the head, the offal, and some good cuts of meat that'll be enough for us to eat for a long time. Giving some to everyone will not only stop the gossip, but also make everyone think well of us. It'll also make things easier for us in the village in the future. After listening, 𝐒𝐨𝐤𝐿 pondered for a while, then nodded heavily. 𝐓𝐵 is thinking long-term. This is exactly how it should be done. 𝐁𝐨𝐮 also understood the reasoning and stopped objecting. Although 𝐁𝐨𝐮 was still a little reluctant, she knew this was the best way. 𝐓𝐵 immediately got to work and began butchering the wild boar. His movements were swift and practiced, and he quickly divided the wild boar into 3 portions. He kept the best portion, including the head and the heart, liver, lungs, and other offal, and a thick, meaty hind leg. As for the other 2 large portions, he had his sister-in-law invite the old village chief over. The highly respected old village chief came leaning on his cane when he saw the butchered wild boar in the yard, and heard 𝐓𝐵's plan to give most of it to the whole village. The old village chief was so moved that his beard trembled. He patted 𝐓𝐵 hard on the shoulder. Good boy, honorable and righteous. Our Kaoshan village has produced a fine young man of honor and righteousness. The old village chief immediately had his son ring the village's broken old bell to summon everyone to gather at the threshing ground. The villagers came to the threshing ground, supporting the elderly and leading the young. When they saw the 2 large sides of pork laid out on the table, every one of them was beside themselves with excitement. The old village chief stood at the front, his voice loud and clear. Folks, the Lin family's boy, 𝐓𝐵, brought down a huge wild boar. He can't bear to eat it all himself and insists on sharing it with the whole village. We in Kaoshan village must never forget this kindness. Now, we'll distribute the meat by household. Every family gets a share. The old village chief personally did the cutting, while his son helped record everything beside him. Family by family, according to the number of people, each received a larger or smaller piece of meat. Even the household that got the least still received nearly 2 jin of hefty wild boar meat. The villagers who got meat were beaming with joy. One by one, they walked up to 𝐓𝐵 and spoke words of thanks. 𝐓𝐵, thank you. Now the children can finally have a taste of meat. If you ever need anything in the future, just say the word. Grandma's son tugged her little grandson Tai-Dan along and insisted on kowtowing to 𝐓𝐵. But 𝐓𝐵 absolutely refused to let her. Li the cripple carried his meat and kept bowing, his eyes red-rimmed. Even Wang Laowu and those few others got a piece of meat. They took the meat with complicated expressions, secretly glancing at 𝐓𝐵 a few times. They didn't dare say anything and hurried off with their heads lowered.